Everybody. I promised a video about the virus theory of disease and why we don't believe in it. And people think this is really crazy. We're all insane. We must have problems with our brain, and therefore we don't understand that viruses cause disease. Where can we start? First of all, the bacterial and viral theory of disease is, number one, a material theory. They're saying that a certain material causes an illness or sickness, and then when you go to the doctor, they ask for symptoms, which again is all a sort of a material focus, like, what's going on materially with you. And I think number two, the virus thing is illogical. You can't prove that viruses exist in live blood. And so I think it was in the year 1998, there was a new kind of microscope invented, which can take images of live blood, and no longer did you have to kill the blood with a dye and a strong light. And the most interesting find of this new microscope, called a dark field microscopy, a dark field microscope, is that it doesn't show viruses in the blood, and that viruses are a creation of the killing of the blood by old microscope technology. And so in the hospitals today, they insist on using microscopes that use technology from the 1960s because they want to see viruses, and they don't know how to comprehend the disease world unless they see those. And the dark field microscopy blows that out of the water. They're just not there. Now, do you see parasites and bacteria? Yeah, you do. You see those. And what we would do is, as spiritualists, we would say those are not very significant. They're not the heart of the problem. They're probably more of a shadow of what's going on, sort of like if your house has rats. The rats are more of a symptom of impurity in the home, and you can get rid of the rats by cleaning up. So, interestingly though, if you're going to say all of us that don't believe that viruses cause disease are crazy, then 1/4 of the world is crazy, because 1/4 of the world is Chinese, and Chinese medicine, which every Chinese enjoys using to some extent or another, does not say viruses exist, and it doesn't talk about bacteria either. And this is very interesting. The classic work of Chinese medicine is called Huangdi Neijing, and Huangdi Neijing makes no mention of bacteria or viruses, and it treats things in a more karmically understandable way. So I'm sick with something, and then I have to make some sort of a penance with something that is probably not going to be really comfortable, something I wouldn't really love, like needles and all kind of smoke and some different kinds of bitter herbs and things like this that you need to do for a long period of time. Doesn't happen quickly, and then you eventually get rid of the problem. Thirdly, I want to say that viral theory is invalid, meaning not only can we not see them in live blood, but let's say in a room of 100 people, we've got cold viruses. They say there's a cold virus, and they could show it in crystal form from dead blood. Fine. So the theory is that this cold virus is constantly airborne, and that all 100 of the people in the room are exposed to the virus. And then maybe the next day, 2 or 3 people have a cold. And I want to state the obvious, which nobody is stating. That's an invalid theory of disease. If A causes B, then 100% 100 of the people in the room should have a cold. So let's talk about the fallbacks or the black holes in Western Jewish medicine. Number one is what they call immune system. So they're like, well, yeah, the 97 people didn't get a cold because they have a good immune system. But do we have really thick, medical books about immune system? No. And some doctors try to pin immune system down on like vitamin C or vitamins or I remember there's a big free radical craze and ions and all these other things. People go to waterfalls. Oh, I'm getting my ions, and well, you can't pin it down. They haven't pinned it down. They won't pin it down. And when you go to med school, they're not going to give you a thick treatise on what the heckers is an immune system. Yet, this immune system idea, like the Oort cloud, is just a proposed thing that they fall back on when what they say doesn't make any sense. What we say in Buddhism is that whatever illness you're getting is a karmic thing, and even birth deformities are karmic things because karma carries over from your past lives, and all things in Buddhism and Hinduism are explained, and they explain them in quite nice detail. And this is alongside a systematic and effective system of medicine, which uses herbs and postures and exercises and everything you could possibly imagine has been documented in our different varying sections of Chinese medicine, Vedic or Hindu medicine. There's also Tibetan medicine as well. And it's just funny to me to see Jews and to see Americans, and they'll tell you, all that stuff's unscientific. It's all superstition. It makes no sense whatsoever. Anyone who believes it is stupid. Well, I think half of the world, if you put the Indians, Tibetans, Chinese together, you're talking about half the world here. So, you're going to have to wake up. People use different kinds of medical ideas in their life. They read different medical books, which are useful to different degrees, and you should check them out. You should begin to learn how to think about your medical problems without resorting to this silly virus theory. Now, the virus theory is funny because it's sort of like evolution. It's just random. It's like, I got hit by this horrible virus, and now it's inside of me, and now I'm sick. And there is no reason. It just hit me. Or they'll say, the reason is he had a weak immune system, but they won't tell you why that is. And the basic idea is that this thing enters me randomly, and then I randomly get a disease. And I had this discussion with our band during the last, around the last performances, because they were really insistent that some people will just get sick for no reason. And in religion and science and in Eastern thought and philosophy, no, that doesn't fly. There's a reason for everything. And being sick is a spiritual state. It's primarily a spiritual problem. I'm going to give you an example. They're saying if I have a cough in my chest, if I have a chest cold, that means that I lied to my parents, that I've been lying to my parents. Now, I knew a woman who did this. She got this really bad chest cold. They tried to cheat her and tell her it was probably, pig flu or something like this, and then eventually she didn't believe that, so they didn't succeed in selling their crazy medicines and keeping her in the hospital forever. But she ended up staying with one of our Buddhist friends, and Buddhist friends started putting on these discs of Buddhist lectures, and one of them was a Buddhist doctor, and the doctor was saying, well, if you have a chest cold, you have been lying to your parents. And that woman, in fact, was lying to her parents. She was, well, it's a very long story, I guess, but she was lying to her parents about, where she was going and what she was doing, and that didn't work out. She got sick from that. You get sick from sinning, people. You get sick from sinning. Let's talk for a minute about the AIDS hoax. The AIDS hoax is a combination of a lot of really sick people and then a pretty bad explanation of why they're sick. And in developed nations, AIDS means that there is a person who doesn't want to admit that his death style is bad for him, and so he wants to go to the grave. He's willing to go to the grave as long as he doesn't have to say that being a fag and taking drugs is bad. He doesn't want to admit that he sinned, that he has problems, that he is guilty. And so he makes a pact with the doctor. The doctor puts a lot of scientific looking numbers and scientific looking things on him. Yet the scientists are telling you over and over again that there's no science in the HIV infectious theory of AIDS. And the person who created the HIV virus, if it is a virus at all, his name is Luc Montagnier. He's a Frenchman, and he created it with a PCR machine. He ripped up, he killed some blood, and he turned it into cellular trash, and then he added some stimulating drugs, and eventually he found some particles that looked like that he said that looked like viruses. And they haven't even determined if these virus-like particles have 8 genes, 9 genes, 10 genes, or 11 genes. And this is funny because every country now, officially, it's a political thing. They have to decide, and I think Britain says HIV has 10 genes, and America says it's 11, and others say it's 8 or 9. And the whole reason they don't agree on it is because it's not really a virus, it's a man-created virus. Now, Luc Montagnier has just come on camera. He's on YouTube now, and he's saying, you'd probably do better just taking vitamins and don't go to a doctor if you think you have AIDS. And he's already publicly admitted that the HIV thing is not a real virus. You can't purify it, and you can't duplicate it, and that means that it's not alive. It doesn't replicate itself even in specific laboratory conditions. And so it's the man who's the inventor of it says it's bogus. It doesn't cause AIDS, and that's a pretty telltale sign. And then the man who invented, I think he co-invented the ELISA antibody test, he's gone on camera and he said that it's not an HIV test. They also print on the boxes that this is not an HIV test. And then the hospitals take this, I am not an HIV test, and give it to people and tell them that it is an HIV test. Well, anything that you take an antibody test for is bogus, because they're not even finding the body. They don't know what the body is, and so they're looking for some antibody that not even one. Like the ELISA test, Western blot test tests, I think something like 20 to 24 different antibodies, and well, we're not sure which one would react with the hypothetical HIV or the bird flu or the mad cow disease or the pig flu, and you start to see a big list of these things that are all tested with this same test. And even the inventor of the test says, well, don't do that. It's an antibody test, that's all it is. It doesn't test these specific diseases. And so anyway, these are some of the controversies, some of the interesting things. I just mentioned this in other videos before, that we don't really believe that viruses or bacteria cause disease. We're clean people. We enjoy taking a bath and cleaning up our room. That ladder back there is because I just ripped out my kitchen and I'm replacing some old boards, and I like being the handyman, the cleanup man. We're clean people, but it's not because we're afraid of bacteria. And I'm afraid of lions. I'm kind of afraid of some dogs, but you can't even see bacteria. They're so small. So why would you live your life in fear of something that's invisible like that, rather than take practical steps to ensure your health, like living a moral life, being kind to people, helping people. I clean up and order my room because I want my guests to feel comfortable. I want myself to feel comfortable in looking at an orderly room, and my guests seeing a clean, orderly room, they feel happy. And I do it for a spiritual reason. I don't do it because I'm trying to kill bacteria. And I probably kill very few of them because I don't use very much soap, and I don't use any antibacterial chemicals in this house. But whatever. I haven't been to a hospital in 7 years, so somebody tell me why I'm so healthy. Anyway, that's the explanation. Amen and Om. You can't prove that viruses exist in live blood, and so I think it was in the year 1998, there was a new kind of microscope invented which can take images of live blood, and no longer did you have to kill the blood with a dye and a strong light. And the most interesting find of this new microscope, called a dark field microscopy, a dark field microscope, bacteria, you see those. And what we would do is, as spiritualists, we would say those are not very significant. They're not the heart of the problem. They're probably more of a shadow of what's going on, sort of like if your house has rats. The rats are more of a symptom of impurity in the home, and you can get rid of the rats by cleaning up. So, interestingly though, is that it doesn't show viruses in the blood, and that viruses are a creation of the killing of the blood by old microscope technology. And so in the hospitals today, they insist on using microscopes that use technology from the 1960s because they want to see viruses, and they don't know how to comprehend the disease world unless they see those. And the dark field microscopy blows that out of the water. They're just not there. Now, do you see parasites? And on a material theory, they're saying that a certain material causes an illness or sickness, and then when you go to the doctor, they ask for symptoms, which again is all a sort of a material focus, like what's going on materially with you. And I think number two, the virus thing is illogical. You can't. Everybody, I promised a video about the virus theory of disease and why we don't believe in it. And people think this is really crazy. We're all insane. We must have problems with our brain, and therefore we don't understand that viruses cause disease. Where can we start? First of all, the bacterial and viral theory of disease is, number one,